Thanks a lot for staying with us on TVC News. Let's get some more on Journalist Hangout now. With less than 2 days to the governorship and state assembly elections, incumbent governors as well as opposition and other critical stakeholders are locked in an intense battle for about 28 governorship slots and 993 legislative seats across Nigeria. And politicians are engaged in last-minute moves to win their states and constituencies through alignments and realignments, as well as endorsements and high-wire intrigues. In fact, BKO, it has been said that just as we saw the patterns at the presidential and the National Assembly elections, the fate of some gladiators could even be determined in this next next leg of elections that we will see on Saturday.
Yes. Somebody was telling me, can you see the way somebody is running from pillar to post? I said, it's natural. If they were complacent the last time, they've realized now that they can't go into this race with that level of complacency. A good number of them, rather than take the election seriously, mobilize seriously for the election, they thought that Asiwaju's name would simply give them victory.
Do the magic.
And I said it even on the day Asiwaju was declared winner, that party leaders in Lagos didn't do enough work. They treated some people with levity, you know, cheated them during the primaries. And some of those people were grassroots people that they should have reached out to. Because, you know, you can win the battle, but you need to win the war. So now the election came. Those aggrieved people refused to work for the party. They were just waiting. I know some of the moves they are making now. They've reached out to some of those people, leading to big people calling such people directly. You've seen people like Obanikoro being brought in to say, help us reconcile with certain individuals. These are things they should have done before, which they didn't do. Now those guys have begun to work for them, and that will impact positively in terms of the shape that the election will take. Now, Beavers has shown that you can't simply rig elections like before again. Forget what people are saying. This is the most transparent election that I've seen since 1999. Somebody said, Jide, stop saying this. People will hate you. They will say, let them hate me. I'm not in competition for popularity. I have nothing to prove anymore. In my profession, I have nothing to prove anymore. So if people will hate me for saying the truth, so be it. So be it. The way it is now, governors are kneeling down for people. They were not doing that before. They are going to places that they ought to have gone in the past. Because they know that they can't rig this election. They can't rig. I said yesterday that I was listening to the governor. I called the governor, and he was in conversation with people, you know, while I was on call with him. And he was saying, you know, this is Beaver's era. You have to go to this place. You have to go to... He was telling them. Oh, from the person that I heard that, I felt like, am I dreaming? He said, this is Beaver's era. You have to go. No, nobody will rig the election for you. You have to go to this place. Go to... Yes. That's the situation we find ourselves. Now, there were people who ridiculed some party leaders. They've lost the presidential election that they lost because 20 governors failed to deliver
their states
in this last presidential election. There are some statistics that we look at. It's not simply, oh, they didn't transmit. Oh, they did. That's just one phase of the thing.
Of the process.
Look at other things that happened. Look at the kind of humongous figures that used to come that we just saw. This election, 250,000. This is the first. Rivers used to bring in excess of 1 million.
Close to 2 million.
Yes.
Almost.
Now, 250 something. Bono delivered in excess of 1 million the other time. In fact, Governor Zulum had the highest votes in the whole country. This time around 250. Doesn't that tell you that because people cannot manipulate the beavers, and bring in people who are not even registered to vote, that the elections are becoming more credible. There are little things, and the white woman, the envoy, has told us this is an election that we should be proud of. But I know when people have made up their minds, even if Jesus Christ comes down to appeal to them, they will not listen. In any case, when Jesus Christ was on earth, the bulk of the people didn't listen to him. So if we were to come back, I know that many people will still not listen. So now, look at Kwara, for example. I expect that with the way the election went, and now the YPP candidate has stepped down for the governor, I expect the governor to win. That looks like a more straightforward thing. We look at a state like Kebbi. Kebbi, I predicted that Kebbi would be lost to PDP. Many people thought I was mad. It happened. Kebbi was lost to the PDP in the presidential election. The same pattern will go on for the governorship, because the key powerful politicians have moved from APC into the PDP. So there are some, look at Gombe. If they do not resolve this, the conflict between the governor and the former governor, Danjuma Goje, the party will lose. It's as simple as that. Look at Nasarawa, there is fire on the mountain. SDP produced 2 senators. Unprecedented. All of these problems arose from the primaries. When you make it difficult for people to achieve their aim of participating in the primaries, and you allow them to leave the party, to join other parties, that decision can hurt you. We are seeing it in some of those places where the APC is struggling now. This is the sort of thing that happens.
Indeed. And look at Lagos, for example, now. A reporter there who has been, monitoring the campaigns of the APC, for instance, now, gave reports about how they had gone to Alimosho. And if you saw the patterns of voting at in the February elections, Alimosho that had the numbers, unfortunately, was lost. The Labour Party got that, absolutely. But speak to, the positives of this new wave that we are seeing now. How healthy and its impact, how healthy is it for you and its impact on our own democracy?
I think it's good that we are saying what we are saying now. What we have always canvassed for is that the saying, power belongs to the people, should become a reality in Nigeria. What we have seen, like Biko said, was that some people were taken for granted, including in Lagos.
Yes.
I can say it with all conviction that rather than prepare for 2023 election, it was taken for granted. Lagos key people were preparing for 2027, post Babajide Sanwo-Olu. That was what they were doing, because they believe it
was a done
it's a done deal. And if they did not pay for it in the presidential election, if all the elections had been conducted in one day, APC would have been out of power by now.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what would have happened. And like Biko said, there are 2 issues now. One is the beavers. We've seen very clearly, Osun election has shown us that if you manipulate in a way that it can be proven, your election will be thrown out. That you had people who did not go through beavers to vote, the election will be thrown out.
By voting.
By voting.
Even if it's 1 vote.
Absolutely.
They'll cancel it.
It will be cancelled. The number 2, which INEC won against in the last 8 years, has been that, see, most of the cases that we got involved in, on which we spent billions, they were internal issues of the parties. They only dragged in INEC into it, which happens to be the primaries. Once you don't allow internal democracy within those parties, and you don't have the capacity of certain politicians that we know in this country to resolve issues after the primaries, you are going to get what you are getting now. Look at a lot of states where people are falling out where the governors have lost control, you go back and see those were issues that came from the primaries.
All right, let me put you on hold. We have our very first caller, Hundu from Makurdi in Benue State. Thank you for joining us. Carry on, please.
Yes, so good evening, already, sir. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Babajide.
Good evening.
Well done, sir. Yes, my name is Hundu, all the way from Makurdi. Yes, Babajide, you are a man that speaks with me at all times. You are a man that Nigerians love so much. Forget about those who have contrary views about you. And you are ready to speak the truth, even if others are not comfortable with it. And we appreciate it. And anytime you talk about Benue State, you speak about it 100%. You see, when you were talking about the issue of APC being strong in Zone A and B, I was just watching you. Because in Zone C, it has been difficult for APC to penetrate. And that is exactly the truth. They're talking about the crisis, headers and farmers crisis. You know, it has hurt the PPP so much that most of the outfits that you see, in Makurdi primary school, they are as a result of the crisis emanating from the herdsmen and farmers crisis. Because most of the time, they take their cattle directly to where farmers are planted. And they eat their things up, and before you know, crisis will start. Then one of the things that the wife of the president-elect told the IDP was that the president-elect will ensure that those people who are in radical chance, they will return to their places. You could see that one of the things that has made Labour Party they were so sure that they will win Benue State. Was two things. One, religion. And secondly, that they have been killing Benue people and they will not vote for APC. But the people proved them wrong. And one of the strong factors that makes Tinubu to win in Benue State is the earlier factor. Yes. Because what we call him yesterday is that everybody is ready to follow him to this governorship election. So it was one of the things that has made Tinubu to win Benue State, and there was no rigging. If anybody said there was rigging, the person is lying to them. Because, like we tell you check was defeated right on his police unit. He was defeated in his ward.
All right, thank you so much, Hundu, for those comments. But do you agree he was painting the picture for us in Benue State? How the election was won. He spoke about the earlier, impact.
I was listening to him. Naturally, you give up the APC cannot take Benue. But the president-elect promised them that there will be justice and that he will return those in IDP camps to their homes. And I think they believed him, and that made a big difference. And then he talked about Ascent earlier.
The impact of the APC
It's a movement in Benue State right now. That's how I described him. Yeah, it's a movement. And while it is true that Zone C, APC has struggled for years to penetrate Zone C, it's a fortress for the PDP. He also admitted that. That's where people like David Mark, the rest of them came from, Abba Moro, they've always won there. But I said earlier, it's a movement in Benue. And the truth is, as long as it's on the ballot, if you could work for Asiwaju and Asiwaju won the election, you can imagine what will happen if it's on the ballot.
Right.
So, this thing, people saying rigging, you can see the way he said there was no rigging. And I've not had a single person raise a finger in Benue to say, they rigged us out. The work of the protest, we know where the protests are coming from. So I still have faith in this process. Praying that INEC will be able to circumvent the attacks. Well, we had 29.1 cyber attacks during the 5 days of the election alone. So I hope that INEC will be able to circumvent those attacks and be able to transmit real time. Because in my view, whoever is popular will win. This transmission is just a bonus. Whoever is popular will still get to win the election. So,
all right. Well, thanks for staying with us. Let's talk some more about the battle to claim and retain some states. Of course, we cannot cover them all within the time we have left. But, Dotun, looking at Delta State, for instance, I'm just taking it off my head now, no particular reason, but looking at Delta State, of course, the exiting governor has already kind of picked sheriff now to replace him. But of course, there are battles that he himself would have to contend with. But what do you make about how things will pan out on Saturday?
Well, like we said in the case of some other states, after that presidential election, people have gone back to the drawing board. They are looking at the errors they committed. In Delta, there is a battle to oust the PDP. It is not even so much about the party itself, but about the governor. They want him and whoever he wants to produce as successor out of the way. When you have people like Tompolo, who naturally should be with the state government, already out and saying, see, whichever way it goes, I'm going with the APC. And I'm going to reach out to those young guys in the Labour Party for us to join forces and fight, not PDP, Okowa. He was specific about it. Then you know that there is trouble to come. There is trouble to come. So it's just a matter of waiting to see what happens. And you saw what happened in the presidential election, yes, how that state was taken out.
All right. Quickly, before I come to BK, Rivers State. In Rivers State, we even saw former Governor Mechi even telling the people now that you are the problem. It's not even Wike. You people are the problem. But how do you think it would play out on Saturday?
I see PDP winning Rivers the way it is now, it's configured. Also, after the presidential election, the APC people said, if Wike worked for us and delivered that state, because you remember, Rivers was one of the last two states that the results came in during the presidential. Right. And for me, I think that was strategic. The numbers didn't go as high as it used to do, but it made a difference. Because if that state had been lost to Labour, some of the calculations that were done by INEC would not have added up. Because, we were talking of 25% here and there. For them, the APC also needed the figure and that technical part of it to keep adding to what Ashwaju Bola Tinubu and the APC got from that presidential election. So for the APC, it mattered a lot. That's why quickly the leadership of APC in that state disowned their own candidate, Onyeko, and said, we are going with the PDP. So how it's now going to happen that what Rotimi Amici is saying to the people will matter, I'm confused. I'm very confused. I don't think that will count in the end. I'm not sure.
BKO, in the South now, Delta, Rivers State, of course, there were a lot of unprecedented dynamics in Rivers State, for example. But on Saturday, is it a clear-cut victory, or how do you see the patterns playing out on Saturday?
Rivers has a very thick, obedient population. And how... I know they've not got the structures, but they have the population. They will give Wike a lot of problems. A lot of the complaints that we've had about this election were from Lagos and Rivers, largely. A lot of those making this noise that there is rigging, they are talking about just two states. They are not pointing out anything happening in the Southeast or anywhere else. So all eyes will be, they are very determined that they will win Rivers. Wike is also very determined to install his own person. That is Sim. So, and of course we have, for the SDP candidates, Magnus Abbey. So it's looking like, Magnus Abbey, yes, for the presidency, he supported Ashwaju. But he wants to be governor. Magnus Abe is likely to hurt the APC chances because Toyeko is on the ballot, whether we like it or not, because he came off a faction of the APC. So PDP still has a good chance because they have all the local government chairmen, they have the people, the foot soldiers, they are more organized than any other party in the state. So that's an edge, that's an advantage. But we cannot discountenance the power of a Labour Party because that is a state where they have a good presence.
Would the same be said for Delta?
Delta, just as he said, the PDP is in trouble in Delta. The PDP is in trouble. If they are able to get Bori on their side fully, it can help. But the way this last election went, it showed that the boys who wanted Labour Party, they cut across all ethnicities in the state. Even the Urobos didn't support PDP. And even in the governor's region, zone, he was defeated. So it's tough, really. But I think that in Cross River, we could see PDP bounce back again. Okay. You know, I said I expected the PDP candidate to defeat the governor in the senatorial race, and he defeated the governor. So in Cross River, the PDP could bounce back. Akwa Ibom, the PDP could bounce back, although PDP has Labour to contend with and YPP, that is Albert, the senator. So generally, this election may not follow exactly the pattern of
that we saw
in
February.
There will still be some changes, there will still be some surprises, you know, that will shock a lot of our people.
Right.
My eyes are on Nasarawa State. Okay. Given what happened during the presidential election, Nasarawa State, Governor Sule has to work very hard. Otherwise,
it's gone.
It's gone.
All right. But let's spend the remaining seconds we have now. What do you make of Kaduna, for example? Well, it was a wide margin for the PDP and the next, of course, APC. But how do you think it will play out on Saturday?
A lot of things will still come into play because now it's local politics.
It is.
It is now. Very local. And we know the way Kaduna is. It's a cosmopolitan, no matter how you look at it. So, saying it's going to be PDP or APC, but I think both of them, even the Labour Party
both
still
have
there.
Equal chances
but
of
the PDP and APC, they stand good to go.
All right. Of course, so much to talk about. The time is indeed limited.